What is up, everybody? It's your boy DFS Jimmy back again for Fanshare Sports. This week we are going to be covering the PGA Championship. Before we get into that, I want to make sure that you guys know, hit the like button down below. Also subscribe to the Fanshare Sports channel. It means a lot to us. We'd certainly appreciate it. And also, if you're not a Fanshare Pro member, make sure you get over there right now. Check that out. Enter promo code Jimmy, all lowercase, and get yourself a discount. Now, for what you're here for, it is the PGA Championship. We are into the second major of the season, this time being hosted, as you can see by the sign behind me, at a very difficult course, the Black Course at Bethpage State Park. Number of golf courses on the property. Very difficult course, as the sign outlines for you. There's been 4 editions in recent history hosted here, from 2002, 2009, 2012, 2016. A couple of them were majors, a couple of them were not. So a little bit of a mix on what we have to look at for course history this week, but either way, it is going to be a great event. I'm looking forward to see how the PGA sets up a track that the U.S. Open had previously set up. I expect it to be a bit more player friendly in general, and also big look out for the weather this week. The weather certainly going to play a factor here in Farmingdale. That's right, Bethpage Black, AW utility house designed 1936 originally, been updated a couple of times. Reese Jones in 2018, I believe, updated it. Like I said, there have been 4 events here. 7,400-yard course, POA greens, usually very high rough. A ball striker's golf course for certain, Parkland style. There's almost no water on the course. I think comes into play on one of the par 3s. Generally known for its brutally thick rough, and Tillinghast in general is known for his significant cross bunkering, high mounding, blind tee shots, blind approach shots. Usually does leave room in his greens for run-ups, not too many false fronts, but does leave an opportunity for players to play a low ball in. But given the weather this week, I'm not sure if players are going to be running too many balls up. Expect some fairly soft conditions in general. There have been, like I said, there have been 4 instances, and I guess we'll do what we normally do. We'll get into the scorecard, then we'll look at players that have fared well here. Again, only 4 instances of play, but we will take a look at who's fared well, who hasn't, a couple of surprises in there, and then also take a look at what my model says this week based on hole distance. So let's get into it. Before this covers some of the bunkering I was talking about, Tillinghast with his cross bunkering. Before getting into the card, wanted to check this out. There's some of the run-ups I was talking about. Elevated greens generally. Scrambling will certainly come into play here. Very difficult to get up and down in some spots throughout this golf course. As I mentioned, a lot of blind tee shots, blind approach shots. You'll see there's some famous shots of golfers walking past one of the bunkers here, and it's probably 2 times as tall as he is, going across the fairway. So a lot of uncomfortable positions Tillinghast puts players in throughout their rounds here at Bethpage. In general, expect a difficult golf course. So let's get into the scorecard, and you'll notice that when it was played in 02 and 09 for the U.S. Open, it was a par 70. The 2 instances where it's played in the Barclays in 12 and 16, it was a 71. These numbers are sort of a blend of all of that, because that's sort of what I expect us to get this week. Is I don't expect us to get U.S. Open conditions, but I don't expect us to get Barclays conditions. So I sort of expect something in the middle, and that's why I just think blending the 2 scorecards together works nicely for scoring averages and how points will shake out. So as you can see, the backside is more difficult than the front side, although that number might bump up a little bit this week because it will play as a par 70. The par 5 here, number 7, that will play as a par 4, slightly shorter than the 530 yards listed. Either way, it will go from an under par hole to likely an over par hole this week. Everything else likely the same. 1 short par 3 here, scoreable. The other par 3s here, very difficult, all over 200 yards. Again, long iron ball striking is going to be crucial at this golf course. Players will, or at least DFS players, will likely want to favor the longer hitters this week, given that we are expecting soft conditions. Keep an eye on weather this week, but expect that early week prior to tee off Thursday, they're going to get quite a bit of rain. It's already been a wet season for them, so expect the golf course to be fairly soft and receptive. So some of these guys will be able to possibly score a bit better than in the past at this track. But certainly want to favor some of the longer hitters if that's the way the course conditions shake out. It is a typical major setup in the sense that you don't have any short par fours. They make you work for everything. Both of the dominant par four ranges, 400 to 450 and 450 plus, 5 holes of those in each, and both play significantly over par historically, although 26% of DraftKings points will come from that mid-range 400 to 450. Those will be the holes that some of your better long iron ball strikers or some of your bombers that get a shorter iron in hand will get an opportunity at throughout the week. These are POA greens and likely to be pretty bumpy given the weather conditions. So, putts are kind of 50-50, a bit like the California swing. So in the par fives, obviously that is where most of our DraftKings points are going to be generated, and the best opportunity for players to capitalize on eagles, and that's the 500 to 550 yard par five range. 2 of those, but like I said, that's historical based on a par 71. There will only be one of these. So look for this number to go down a bit and the course to play a bit more difficult with regard to that this par 5 number, since you're only going to get 2 par 5s in the par 70 setup. Still crucial to scoring, and again, favor bombers likely based on conditions. So let's look at the history here. There's been 4 instances: 16, 12, 2009, and 2012. With that, we have a breakdown by salary. I've also included my model rank that's based on, I've built 3 blended models at Fantasy National, and those all roll up into this model. Do factor in the weather conditions expected this week. We will take a quick look at weather as well, but sort by course average here and who has been the best based on average. Patrick Reed won in 2016 at the Barclays. Oddly enough, Sergio, not oddly, I guess, despite his track record in, his infamous, gripping and regripping in New York, Sergio has played well here at this venue throughout the years, but in both U.S. Open and Barclays setups. Jason Kokrak, probably a fairly popular choice this week with his performance at the Barclays a couple of years back and how well he's been playing this year. Louis Oosthuizen has played well at this course. Notice a trend. All these guys are great long iron ball strikers. Phil Mickelson, double-time bridesmaid here at the U.S. Open. Kudos to his Instagram game right now. Phil is absolutely crushing the social media scene, hitting bombs, if you will, hitting bombs. So, congrats to Phil on Instagram success and social media domination of the PGA Tour. Phil always seems to play well in New York, and the crowd loves him. He loves the crowd. A lot of good energy for Phil there, and Phil's been playing pretty well. Expect him to, I don't know if he's going to finish runner-up again, but expect him to play well this week, just given his course history. Despite his sometimes erratic driver, Phil does know how to dial it back and put himself in position when necessary on difficult golf courses. Scrolling down, Tiger Woods won here at the U.S. Open, back in 2002, and then 6th, and then 38th, back in 2012. Obviously wasn't the same guys previously. So Tiger ranked 8th in my model this week, and the blended model certainly the number one threat to win again, it seems like, given his Masters performance. Great to see the old Tiger back. Very excited if he wins. Also, FanDuel's giving you your money back if you win, in the $15 if he wins. So there's that. Johnny Vegas, interesting for me, ranked number 5 in my model, finished 22nd here and at the Barclays. Playing some pretty good golf lately. Johnny always seems to play really well on soft golf courses, so really interested to see how Johnny does, especially since he's coming so highly ranked in my model. We'll certainly have some shares of him this week. But you get the trend. Long iron ball strikers play well here. You look at some of these guys that, a bit surprising. Mark Leishman, even if he wasn't having a back injury, doesn't look like he's fared too well at this golf course, even in easy setups. Kevin Na, despite his long iron ball striking prowess, probably just too short for this golf course. A couple of miscuts there. Kyle Stanley, you would think Kyle Stanley's game would fit here better. Interesting. He is a great long iron ball striker. Brooks, don't read too much into the ranking or with Brooks. I think Brooks has shown everybody that he is a big game hunter, and it's nice to see he has some course experience here despite his 70th place finish. Daniel Berger is interesting why he's coming at 13th ranked for me. I can understand why, I guess, because the models are all based off hole distance, and he tends to perform well on the mid length and long par fours, despite not being able to really capitalize on the par fives. Probably a bit too long of a golf course for Berger, but interesting that he rates well in the model this week, I guess. But you get the point. It's long iron ball striking, especially when it comes to the U.S. Open type setup. In the blend, I think we're going to see between, you're going to have to find the fairway. Bethpage known for the thick rough, but the bombers that can find the fairway will certainly be able to capitalize. You will take consistency across 4 days. This is a major. The Wanamaker Trophy is, while it's not always been considered the most difficult major, I do think that it is going to it's going to test players well this week, and again, watch for the changing weather conditions. Some of the guys that always seem to play well in weather, will notice that 2009 was the rain-soaked edition, so worth a quick look here, given that we can potentially expect some really soft conditions, and that's what we saw here in 2009. Tiger finishing sixth, even though he got the really bad weather draw that year. Phil Mickelson always seems to play well in the weather for one reason or another. Same thing, Stenson and Sergio, again, great weather players, it seems like. Rory, not necessarily known as a great weather player. However, Rory does come up number one ranked in my model, and all of Rory's major wins seem to have come at rain-soaked golf courses, real soft conditions where his length off the tee can really put him in a position to capitalize on what is maybe, probably, I guess, second best long iron game to what Tiger showed us again, that he's back. But great long iron ball striking from Rory when he's in position. So, hard to ignore Rory in potentially very soft conditions. Bubba Watson shows surprising consistency here to me on a course that wouldn't necessarily fit a guy like Bubba, in my opinion, but his length off the tee and his creative nature sort of allow him to take advantage of his length and then be creative into the greens with some of the blind shots that Tillinghast forces you into. So interesting to see where Bubba Watson's ownership comes in this week. Make sure you're following the Fanshare news feed for the tags and to see how popular Bubba's going to get this week. But probably a cash game staple for folks this week based on course history, if I had to guess, which will make him fairly popular. Lee Westwood is an interesting flyer for me. Finishing 14th here in his two tries. Been playing some interesting golf on the European Tour. Obviously, you're not going to see him in the model, but just kind of playing footloose, fancy free. Westwood's older, not really expecting anything, but at 6,800 could be an interesting cut maker. Course seems to fit a guy like Adam Scott, despite his course record here. A long iron ball striker puts himself in good positions, and putting much better recently with his switch to the longer putter and that semi-anchored style. Dustin Johnson, obviously. Ranks highly in the model and ranks 6 all over. So I guess let's sort by who is the number one ranked in my model. No surprise, Rory. Justin Thomas ideally would fit this course, but a big question mark with where his wrist is. Tony Finau, I think, is the giant value, $8,800 to finish 12th in 2016. Game has come a very long way since his 12th place finish there in 2016. Really think that Finau has a great opportunity to dominate, and I shouldn't say dominate, but play well on a course that will demand length, and he has been very consistent, really improved his putting, like where Tony Finau is in price this week. I've already talked about Jonathan Vegas. I think he's a bit of a value of 7,100. It ranks highly in the model, and I think he'll probably end up being fairly popular, though. I would say like the 9 to 14% ownership range. Probably doesn't crack 13 or 14 though. Tommy Fleetwood, despite not having any course history, rates really well for me. Especially, I really like Tommy if the weather conditions are bad, blustery or rainy or even soft. Fleetwood rates well in the model, and I think the course sets up well for a guy like Tommy. So I'll be interested to see where he does, and definitely have some ownership shares of him. Already talked about Tiger. Love Tiger. Everyone loves Tiger. Would love to see him go back to back. That would be absolutely incredible. Would just add to the lore and the legend. So always rooting for Tiger, and we'll have some shares. Matt Kuchar, obviously you see his course history there, despite what the model thinks. I don't think this is a course for Kuchar this week, probably just too long for him, and I'm not really on board with Kuchar, despite how my model likes him at 9. Ricky Fowler, always like Ricky, played well here a couple of times, and I think he's one of those guys that I think is always going to have an opportunity in majors and always going to play consistent, strong golf and put himself, kind of in that mid pack with an opportunity. But I don't know if this is where Ricky gets it done. However, Ricky does seem to be one of the better players in the weathers, so could shake out in his favor this week. Patrick Cantlay, not really sure how he'll play with the weather and whatnot. Obviously has the ball striking game to do it and whatnot, but I'm not sure that I like his lack of course history and the fact that he hasn't been the best scrambler in his career, and this course will demand some scrambling. Already talked about Bubba. Decky, I think Decky makes the cut. I don't think I read too much into his miscut here back in 2016. Ball striking is great, and seems like the kind of course that Hideki should be able to play well at. Getting into some guys that the model likes that I don't like. Jim Furyk, no, of course, too long. Brant Snedeker, not sure if he's even healthy, despite his second place finish here one time. Charlie Hoffman's interesting, just game's not there right now. John Rahm was the guy that my model doesn't like a whole lot, but I do think is really interesting as a guy that is a bomber and should be able to capitalize on some of the wet, soft conditions here and really be aggressive on the course that may not otherwise allow it, and that could benefit a guy like Rahm. So despite his lack of course history, I do like John Rahm this week, $9,500. Brooks Koepka, again, like I said earlier, don't read too much into the ranking or to his course history. Brooks should absolutely crush it, like Brooks seems to always do these days in majors. So one of the best major DraftKings point scorers out there. So definitely no reason to shy away from him. Louis Oosthuizen, despite what the model thinks, he's played well here twice. Louis always seems to be around in majors and been playing really well this year. So would not be surprised to see Louis have success at this golf course this week. Webb, you'd think Webb would play better here, probably just a bit too long for him. I don't think this is where Spieth continues his good run. I think he gets into a bit of trouble here off the tee, despite what his finish over here last week. Sergio, who knows where his game is, although he's played really well here in the past. Not sure where his game is currently, and especially mentally, don't know where his game is, but he'll probably show up because, well, he's Sergio and it's a major. On a ball striker's golf course, so expect some decent ownership at $7,900 for him. So, guys, that is my complete breakdown for the PGA Championship. Those are all my thoughts, all my wishes, and I think we're in for a great week of golf. I'm looking forward to another major and a great week for the Fanshare Pro subscribers. So, guys, have a great week. Best of luck. DFS Jimmy out.